so much that I'm just showing up for them. I don't think comedians relate to that too much, because when you show up first, there's a gigantic expectation. Here's what I want from you, and here's what I've paid for. So I think that might be mainstream.
Maybe.
You know.
But are there two worlds? Is there a mainstream world and there's a different world? I mean, is it alternate? Is it experimental? Is it niche? Is there an alternate to mainstream?
I think in general, people create this versus this and this versus this and all these little categories for where you should fit in or what it means to be within that category. And I don't really think about it very much. I wish people didn't do it. I think that you should just try to do projects that you're interested in doing and that you think are a good story or you'd like to have watched. And beyond that, I try not to worry too much about all of the rest.
But Shefali, if I can say that there are two worlds in my mind, because as a media person, we overanalyze. That's a fault that we do. So if there are two worlds, what is the difference between the two? I mean, is there because you've done TV, you've done Bollywood, and then you've done Delhi Crime, which is what you've been nominated for. Is there something you find like? Is there a wall between these two worlds? Is it a ceiling?
Between mainstream and
whatever the other is.
I think earlier there was a predominant wall, but particularly for women, when you look back at the 60s and 70s, there were films made for women, with women at any age group. Whether you talk about a Andhi or a Anupama or a Aradhana, all these films. Then came a period where the heroine had a shelf life from 18 to 22, 25. And they didn't know what to do with, real human beings beyond the age of 18 and 22. But now there are stories being told. When you talk about a Tumhari Sulu, you talk about a lipstick under my burqa. So that, I'm glad that is moving. That line is kind of dissipating, which is fantastic. And I have to give it to, somebody else having paved that path for me, whether it's a Shabana ji or it's a Smita Patil. I mean, somebody was working on that line, but I think that line is kind of blurring. I just really wish it gets erased.
I think because the one thing they have in common is still stories, right? And one might be a slightly more fictionalized version of that story. The way I look at it is there's news and then there's mainstream news. And one of those is slightly more fictionalized than the other. So mainstream media, just like mainstream cinema.
The one thing I love about Veer, and I've watched almost all the shows, I think I watched all the shows, is that I don't remember the last show where he hasn't taken a pot shot at Times of India. So
I'm an ex-Times of India employee, by the way. I started out as a VJ with Times of India. So it's my first gig in Mumbai. So,
but not in the newspaper. So you weren't doing news.
No, not at all. Some would argue neither a day. But let's move on.
How much of truth, because you're saying that there's more fictionalized, mainstream gets more fictionalized, how much of truth is there in the stuff that you do?
Not much, to be honest. I think there's stand-up is one of two things, right? It's either that you've said the thing in the room that everybody was thinking and you needed an idiot to show up and say it for everybody else, or you've said the thing in the room that nobody's thinking and then it's battle. So the premise of a joke is either agreement or complete disagreement. If it's disagreement, it has to turn into something ridiculous that then eases the discomfort. But otherwise, it's just agreement. So the truth is never so much said in stand-up. It's just a feeling, that we all kind of agree on. And then it goes into something ridiculous within a few seconds.
All three of you, actually, the one thing common is that you guys are all been nominated for something which is, in a sense, rooted in truth. I mean, even your whole show was, in a sense, a response to something that actually happened. So there was a lot of truth in it. Obviously, Delhi Crime, we know, was about a rape, about the horrendous rape, gang rape in Delhi. And yours was almost a biography of two incredible individuals. So is the appetite for truth sort of more now than it was 25 years ago, you think? Or are we just loving good dramatic stories and we're just overanalyzing anything beyond that?
I don't know what the appetite for truth was like 25 years ago, to be very, very honest. I was about 10 years old then. I can't really say. I can't really say. I do know that I have been in actually a lot of films based on true events. Many, many, many of them, weirdly, have been like that for me. And it has been I have not gone out and picked those particular kinds of projects, but right from Neerja was based on a real
Yeah.
situation. Sanju, Padmaavat, Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway, Death in the Gunj, and the list kind of continues. Rocket Boys, many weirdly have been like that. Maybe people are just realizing that there are really good stories out there in India that haven't usually been looked at or given precedence or the time to be turned into something entertaining to watch. Maybe that model is changing. Maybe now we are looking more internally and finding interesting, true events to fictionalize in a way that will be exciting.
Yeah.
Maybe?
But the politics cannot be removed once you start talking about truth, right? I mean, beyond a point, anything can kind of become much more than you intended it to be. Did that occur to you at all when you were
I think
starting to play that role?
I think the one thing that occurred not just to me but all of us who were creating it, starting from DC1, was when you're particularly creating a show or a film on a real life case, you need immense sensitivity and it's a lot of responsibility. People have already gone through it. You don't need to come back and rub it in their face.
Yeah, it's like putting
Also,
your fingers in a
yeah,
scar.
like and also Delhi crime was more about what happened after the 5 days
Yeah.
that followed after the incident. It wasn't about it. It could have been sensationalized. It wasn't. It was very consciously not approached in that way. So and I also remember when we were doing the promotions, like when we won the Emmy for Delhi Crime,
Yeah.
we could have, popped. Of course, everybody was dying because of COVID. Sorry, but we could have really gone all out and celebrated in whatever way. But we all knew that it was a show which was, somebody was terribly hurt.
Right. Right.
It was a loss of life, and we won on that show. So it was a juxtapose of sorts.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about that with Rocket Boys as well. We haven't had to use the atom bomb or the nuclear
Yeah.
bomb, and that would change everything. It would change everything about how we looked at Homi Bhabha if that was the case.
Yeah.
Like how when we saw Oppenheimer, it's more or less a
Yeah.
tragedy you're watching unfold in front of your eyes and not a heroic tale of this person that strived at a time when there were no resources. Whereas Rocket Boys could be that because we've not used the bomb. I really did think about that a lot when Delhi Crime Season 1 came out. Is like, what does it mean to take a tragedy and turn it into a hit show? It's a very odd
Yeah.
juxtaposition.
But I also, when
And make money out of it.
well, we should check that with Netflix, how much they made on that, and the producers probably. But also, while we were creating, when Rishi met me for the first time, he categorically said that we are not going into the rape.
Right.
We don't want to go
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes
There's
sense.
enough damage done there. Just let's leave it, out of respect and whatever. We were trying to also show the truth of what happened post it. Like there was one question that all of us asked when that incident happened, which was, why is no one doing anything about it? And when he told me about it, I realized, oh my God, there was someone doing something about it, and it was a woman. So it was really I still get goosebumps, but it we didn't have to think of being delicate about it.
Yeah.
I think it just came naturally
Right.
because it really affected us personally.
Right. Veer, do you want like the audiences to take you more seriously or less seriously?
I don't think I get to choose. I think that's the thing with stand up. It's a weird thing where the energy of this room, you could fill it with people from exactly the same demographic in the room tomorrow, and it'll be a different energy. So it's impossible for me to tell what they're going to laugh at or what they're not going to laugh at. the precedent that we've set with each other is there's a line and I'm the idiot. I take the shots so you don't have to take the shots. I make an ass of myself so you don't feel like an ass about your life. So it is my job to walk up to the line and we look at each other and I'll make you laugh at that line and then we'll walk away from each other. And tomorrow, if you change that line as an audience member, I'll work with whatever line you set. But we'll always meet at the line.
Wait, the line is set by you or by the audience?
The line is set by you. You know,
You, the audience.
You, the audience. There is nothing worse in this world than silence from an audience. There is no greater teacher than an audience. There is no greater editor or rewriter of your stand-up comedy than the audience. And they will change the line. There are jokes that you would have done in 2012 or 2009 that were unevolved, that would be that were evolved then and would be considered unevolved and uncivilized right now. The audience taught you that. Right. So our evolution comes from the audience. Right. But we have to, I always say this, I think what every comedian in India deserves, because we are a nascent stand-up comedy market when it comes to events, etc., is the audacity of imperfection. Please allow me to walk up to the line. Let me be imperfect at the line. Give me time and let me work on it and let me listen to you. And then when it's good, we'll go from there.
Hey, sorry, now that you're more famous, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you did a zero show, there would be a huge audience for it. How do you test out new material still?
I pop into clubs where nobody knows that I'm coming. I also... I travel abroad a fair amount, so I'll go to the Comedy Cellar in New York, and there I'm just the brown guy on the lineup. So there's no context for who I am. And it feels kind of good to just have that anonymity and to have no pre-context. But how stand-up works is it's literally minute by minute by minute. Oh my God, I have 3 new minutes. I'll go to Habitat tonight, and I'll find out that they either suck or they're amazing. And 3, you just build 90 minutes that way. That's kind of how you do it.
Well, I've got like 4 follow-ups, so I'm trying to pick which one to go with. No, it's great. You love art. You is what I've learned about you in the last 12 hours, and you're like really sort of. I believe you follow a lot of Indian artists and foreign artists and all.
Yeah, I have a leg up there.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that a very sort of a purist definition of art is somebody who's kind of doing something for himself. Maybe, you know, a famous painter's painted for himself, or painted for his loved one, or painted for his immediate family. I mean, he's painted for, in a sense, it's not for an audience. The audience is kind of invited to kind of, you know, just enjoy the ride or kind of just spectate. But you're not thinking about the audience in a, you know, if you think about the old purist painters, artists, however we kind of is, but now as you're responding very closely to the audience now. And I mean, you know, Netflix and all the OTT platforms, and you know, it's a movie is actually like an FMCG product. It's like a shampoo. You're catering to audiences in a very, you do case study, you do everything that it takes to sell a shampoo, you sell a movie or a show with.
Who's the guy that cut his ear off again? What's his artist? Van Gogh. So Van Gogh had a compulsion, right? He had to paint. He had no real choice. He just kind of had to get things out. He was prolific. He could do a painting or 2 a day, etc., etc. But he wanted audiences to appreciate it and buy it. And the greatest tragedy of his life was that he died penniless, nobody appreciating his work. You know, the appreciation came later. So I don't know how much I can agree with this old artistic notion of, no, I do it for myself or for someone close to me. I think the whole point of art, I mean, written into the idea of art is sharing. If a story doesn't have an audience, then it's dead. A story wants only one thing, and that is to be heard. Right. It has no other point.
Okay. You think all the like painters, the famous painters that you follow,
painters as well, they're just stories. They're just
and so they kept the audience in the mind. They kept the
I don't know if it's necessarily that they kept an audience in their mind, but they did create something that they hoped would resonate and be shared with another human being because of the universality of experience in general. So I think there are, of course, more personal pieces to artists as the time continues and goes on. And there's some things you just have to do because you want to get it out. But even when you want to get it out, the idea is still that you hope it resonates with other people and you all can share the experience of it together, which might be more than what you intended or different than what you intended.
Right. No, fascinating. So I want to actually come back, Veer, to what you were saying about the audience is drawing the line. You're not drawing
Oh,
the
for
line.
sure,
How
yeah.
much you're responding and how much you're kind of reading that line. Just to get into that question, Jim, I want you to repeat that story that I brought up with you on the elevator ride down, which I just heard you say last year. I'm going to ruin it if I repeat that story.
Yeah,
But
sure.
it was your attempt, or it was your attempt at performance art.
Yeah.
Can you just share that story with us, and I'm going to follow up with.
Sure, yeah. I was living in Atlanta. I was working in a theater. It was called the Alliance Theater. It was a great big theater. I was the literary intern. I didn't have that much to do at the place. But there were a bunch of experimental theater groups kind of kicking about in Atlanta as well. It was it was now it's become a real film city, but before that, it wasn't while I was there. I might have stayed, I don't know. And I was also, as one is after college sometimes, got very interested in spirituality and what does it mean to be on stage, and the experience of God that people explain is very similar to the one you have on stage, and maybe I'm asking the wrong questions, and maybe I don't want to do theater, maybe I want to learn about myself, and I should leave and go to an ashram. And this is always the thing was kicking around in my head that 1 year afterwards, after college, and I got obsessed with this one performance artist named Marina Abramovich. Interesting lady.
Show of hands, anybody knows that name?
Marina Abramovich, anyone?
No?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. Performance artist, silence. She did a bunch of things. She ended up breaking up with her boyfriend in a very well documented piece where they started on opposite sides of the Great Wall of China and then met in the middle, hugged each other, said goodbye, and carried on the walk. They've done these elaborate pieces where there's a bow and arrow, and I'm holding the arrow part and you're holding the wooden bow part, and we're facing each other. So if anybody gives way or loses concentration or gets tired, it potentially is Marina Abramovich dying, getting an arrow in her chest. Amongst many other things of like endurance-based and stillness-based things. And one of the things she did was she stood very still for about an hour in preparation and then let people in, and had about 64 household items. Why 64? No idea. 64 household items around her. And there's a big sign saying the artist takes full responsibility for whatever you do to this person. Whatever you do to them, feel free to use any item you wish to use. So,
And you did the same thing.
yeah, I did the same thing. So I'd stand still for an hour and I'd just wear a pair of not these Willy Wonka pants, but just regular loose yoga pants. And I would just stand there completely still for an hour with this stuff around. And then people would start to filter in because I was the pre-show for a play that was happening. So as they walked into the play, they would kind of pass by me. And I had a bunch of things out around there, stapler, some whiskey, bread, a book. Imagine 64 random items picked from your house.
From a rose to a knife. Just
from a rose to a
to a knife.
Yeah.
I remember those being in her
Right.
64.
There was a knife, there was a rose, there was all of this stuff. And then I'd stand, and then people would come in, and then they would start interacting with me. Some people would move me into an odd position. Some people would tilt my head back and pour whiskey down my throat. Some people would put a staple in my arm. Some people would take the staple out and put there was some, I can't remember, some lidocaine ointment, pain relieving ointment. Someone would do that. And what I found was, really, after a few days of doing it, maybe on the second day, well, right off from the first day, once the act was over and everyone would go in for the play, and I knew that the doors are now closed and that's the end of that, I would go and wash myself off, because someone would have shaved my chest hair off, another person would have put paint all over my face. You know, there was a bunch of things that people would do. I'd go and wash myself off, and as I was washing myself off, I would feel that I had a sheath of power over me, and nobody could do anything to me. Nobody could affect me. It didn't matter. Whether they treated me well or they treated me badly, it didn't change one thing, not in the slightest. And actually, everything they did to me had more to do with them than it had to do with me. And that's a very powerful learning to try to carry through your life, is that it's really got nothing to do with you, how people approach and talk to you and speak to you. It has everything to do with them. It was wonderful. And by the third day, also second or third day, without moving and without looking, because I'm staring at one point, right, while this person is doing whatever they could, I could tell by the way they came over that this is going to be a tormentor, or this is going to be, or this is going to be a helper, or this is going to be someone who makes a lot of noise to their friends, and actually when they get there, they're not going to do anything. They're actually nice, or whatever it was. And it was lovely.
We,
That's what an open mic feels like for comics, basically, when the first time you do stand-up. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, go ahead.
No, but when accepting that premise that, it's really about the audience. It's not it's much more about the audience than you as an artist believe, right? I mean, if you're just taking this forward, it's about what mood that guy is in, what kind of frame of mind that person is in, how he or she has come to watch your show. When happened when you did your two Indias, what does that say about the audience? What does that say about how dynamic is this audience?
I think it's the most diverse audience in the world. We're like this big joint family that's having dinner together on a festival, and someone's going to hate the bhindi and somebody's going to love it, and somebody's going to want the chanas. And there's one crazy chacha and there's one, horny young cousin. It's just, we're all together. But what I love about my art form is that we can fundamentally disagree about it, but laugh about it under the same roof.
Yeah.
These are just words at the end of the day. Whether I'm right or not doesn't matter within a stand-up comedy setting. What is the premise of a stand-up comedy show? All I promise you, if you show up, is 600%. All right? I will leave 600% of my life on stage so that you go home flying on a cloud, so that you forget about the problems. That's where I put you. So it's all about putting you first. And none of the things that I say about the world will be even half as terrible as the things I say about myself. That's the rule of stand-up comedy. Now, something that I would love the audience to know is, if you ever hear a joke you don't like, wait 30 seconds and there'll be a joke about somebody else. All right? It's usually because the joke is about you. But comedians are not coming at this from a place of power. That's what I'd love for all of us to understand, is we assume that because people have shown up, you're powerful. You're not. You're talking about the world. My job was created so that kings could be humanized for their subjects. My job was created so big stars in the world could be humanized and be seen as fallible. And my job was to dance until you saw them as human beings. Now, don't be mad because I pointed out the cracks. All I have to work with is the cracks. But you know how Japanese people fill gold in the cracks and they're beautiful. That's what we're doing here. So that the next time you think of something that's dark, the next time you think of something that went wrong, you associate laughter that I brought to it with you. So let me dance, that's what it is.
And the identity of I feel like human identities become so much more complicated now. And you address this almost, I think, every comic kind of talks about identity and how it's so complicated now. The fact that it's so complicated, right? Like, if I think about my grandfather, having a Hinge or a Tinder account in the 40s or 50s.
Yeah.
If he had to define...
My granddad would have cleaned up on Hinge. I'm just saying.
So, if he had to describe himself in 5 words or whatever the way to, just catch attention, it's going to be very different from how, a guy would do it today. He's going to probably say Indian, Gandhian, Marwari, that's the kind of stuff that he would kind of think first. I don't know whether that's the case today. I don't think today anybody's going to say Hindu, Indian. I don't know. Although the politics might say differently, but I don't know whether your audience will come around saying those things. They might come and say, their whole way of defining themselves now is how they're different.
But you have to understand that there's a performative aspect to that as well. I have the youngest audience in the world that I've ever had. So my audience is 18 to 25. And what I always tell them is you got addicted to performative dopamine on the internet. Now, 5 generations before you battled to say, don't label me, don't put me in a box, I'm just a human being. Now, every label represents validation and community and some level of dopamine as well. So you're trying to gather as many labels as you can because they represent dopamine. So you're not just a human being, you are a polyamorous ADHD vegan juggler who's religiously agnostic but Avengers adjacent, right? This is
Yeah.
so that's fine and that's life. But the bit is, at the end of the day, the world's also very basic. There are assholes and there are good people. And those two are labels that we should keep using too.
But mostly people don't call themselves assholes. So, I mean, they're identifying themselves. I mean, I feel like people are identifying themselves to be different now. Maybe earlier they would identify themselves to be as part of something larger, or part of a larger community. But now it's all about how do you stand out? How are you different? Yeah. Does that affect your art? That there are so many identities now.
No, if you want to play devil's advocate, something that comedians have had to contend with now that we're having a hard time adjusting to is, earlier it was, here are my jokes, you're offended, oh so sorry, I'm off to the next city. And now we have to be humbled by the fact that the audience has a voice. It's just as loud as ours. And we have to contend with their feedback in the most humble manner. I was telling Shefali this also. I love this generation. I love it. They destroyed stardom. Think about that. They destroyed celebrity in a second. And they value artistry. Earlier, what was the illusion? That only Ranbir or someone beautiful got to stand in front of the mountain and have beautiful music and beautiful lighting. These guys do that 5 times a day on Instagram. They look behind the curtain. So it's no longer undeniable or inaccessible to them. So now what else are you? What other identity do you have? What are your values? How is your behavior? Who are you? Then I'll follow you. These people are not fans. They're audience members. I've waited for them for a long goddamn time,
And for them to follow you and not be fans, are you, not you, but like, do you feel people who have a lot of followers, are they forced to be more authentic, or are they able to get away by faking it?
I don't think you can fake it anymore. I think this generation smells bullshit a mile away. It's the simple thing of...
Really? Because anybody is a star today, right? Anybody is not a star. Anybody's got 100,000, 200,000 followers. I'm just pushing. Shefali, if you have a view on this?
What?
Okay, let me frame a political question. What is a star today? Who is a star today?
I have no idea. But I think Shah Rukh Khan is a star.
Yeah.
And he's always going to be a star. So is Mr. Bachchan.
Yeah.
So was Dilip Kumar Saab.
So are there any new stars?
Sorry?
Do we have any new stars after the Shah Rukh?
Ranveer, Alia.
Okay.
They are stars. I'm not. So I can tell you what is not a star. No, I don't want to be. No, I don't want to be.
Jim, do you want to be a star?
I don't think about things like this. So you're asking me a question that now I'm gonna have to come up with some answer, pull it out of somewhere. But like, I really don't think about things like this. I tried to say that right in the beginning.
Okay, fair. No, but but if you are a star today, whatever a star means, let's not. You're not Shah Rukh Khan, but you've got. If you're somebody who's got.
I hear only the words only, and I'm like,
forget all of us. Do you want to be an influencer? That's the real question. There's no currency in stardom anymore. There's currency in influence. So do you want to be an influencer?
So influencer is what?
Hey, let's not shit on influencers.
Yeah. It's dangerous.
Marketing ke liye sabko chahiye na influencers. So let's all behave. No.
To be a star, the old word star. Jim, sorry, cringe a bit. Just hang on. Is it how much more talent is it than it used to be, or how much personality? Because it sounds to me like the old stars, like a Devanand, that one, it was so much about his personality and that much less about his talent as it is maybe today.
But it's 360. Look at the names you just took. You said Shah Rukh Khan and Mr. Bachchan. They are stars by virtue of on-screen, off-screen together. Talent. It's a 360-degree admiration of that person. That's stardom now.
So is there a new? So would you agree with Shefali that there are new stars? That stardom is that it's like, it's still very much, it's elusive, of course, but every generation will have its own stars.
I think so, but I think the connection is now deeper. It's no longer a surface level or a vanity connection. The connection will have to be deeper for this generation, at least, going forward.
Because they are more accessible, or because they are
Because
communicating more, or
they look behind the curtain and they've discovered that a lot of, I think they crave reality. They've been brought up in this world where nobody knows what the hell is true anymore. Why are true stories working across the board? Why are biopics working? Why is historical fiction working, etc.? It's because everybody in the present has their own truth. So
Right.
you need something to ground you. Why is Rocket Boys beautiful? Why is Delhi Crime beautiful? It's because it's just rooted in what really happened,
Yeah.
as opposed to Twitter, which is like, can you believe you live in a world where Vladimir Putin has the same size box as Pete Davidson?
Yeah.
Look at the difference in context between what they represent to the world.
Yeah.
But they have the same size box. So we need truth.
Yeah.
And I think these
Is
programs
it-
deliver it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's post-truth time.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it exists in the same way than it ever did before, or if it ever did exist in the first place. But I guess you are more, at least on stage, you're sounding more positive about it than I am in my heart. I feel very odd and very strange when I think about how we basically live in a post-truth society and there's no way to know. And if you look at recent reportings, one thing will be announced and then one day later it'll be announced as completely false, made up, propaganda, put out by this, morphed images, morphed voices. I mean, it makes me feel very odd, very queasy.
Yeah, the only solace I take is we've had to deal with it later in our lives. I can't imagine what it's like to be 16 years old right now. To be subjected to that much feedback. Kids weren't meant for this much feedback.
Yeah.
On your face, on your body, on
Yeah.
your dress, etc. I can't imagine what it's like to be a 16-year-old girl right now
Yeah.
on Instagram.
Just your class friends were enough, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They messed you up enough.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're having conversations for hours a day, looking at yourself as much as looking at the person you're talking
Yeah.
to, that's also something that's very, very thing. But it's taken you guys a bit of some time to get to where you are. It didn't happen overnight. It took you all in your own ways, had your struggles to get here. Was fame ever an objective? Because you said you don't like the word star, you just like doing what you do. But did you ever kind of like think about mera number kab aayega? Was that kind of a thought process? Or
I mean, I'm not so stupid to sit here and pretend that I don't like recognition or being recognized, because I 100% do. Again, it goes back to that idea of you want the story to reach people, and if it doesn't reach people, then it's a bit useless. So yeah, absolutely.
so how are you measuring your success? Is it by the number of people asking for selfies when you walk out of the stage? Number of
True.
followers?
I don't like to measure it in that capacity at all. Me personally, the way that I like to measure it is, am I getting another project that is really exciting to me? That's what makes me happy and makes me want to continue going out, forward. If it's just a bunch of no offense, if it's a bunch of panel discussions and award shows, etc., actually, I really have to struggle. I really have to struggle to be in a good mood, and it's gonna be, and this is great, and yeah. Oh yeah,
Happy to be here, guys.
Rocket Boys too, whereas if none of that happened, if none of it, but I know that one feeds the other. I know that they're all connected. I can't pretend they're separate. But if there was a world where nobody asked me for a selfie, but I kept getting cast in projects that really excited me, I choose that world.
Yeah.
Any day of the week.
Okay.
However, I know it's all interconnected and you can't unravel those threads.
And just the commerce of it all, would you rather get a great role where you're second lead with Shah Rukh Khan or Ranveer, like you were in Padmaavat? I mean, that massive, incredible role that you had, or would you rather kind of play that main lead in a Netflix show?
That's the thing. They all feed each other. That's what I can't
Yeah, you can't separate the two.
extricate. Yeah, I know that I'll still meet people today who'll say, loved you in Padmaavat. They've not seen any of the other stuff. None of it. Zero, let's say. That's all that they've seen. So I understand the importance of that. And I understand how that results in potentially the lead role in the Netflix thing or a lead role in SonyLIV thing or whatever it is. So ideally, I get to act in things where I like the role and I like the project, and I don't worry too much about how this is eventually gonna pay dividends in the future.
Okay. Relatability, Shefali, is that something that is new? Because you've seen it all actually, in a sense. You've seen TV, you've seen uh, silver screen, and you've seen looking down screen. Is relatability the new kind of moving part in your followership, in your success as a star?
I think relatability has always been there. Uh, there might be different people relating to different things. That's why there is no good or bad or right or wrong, rather. Art doesn't have that. It's very, very subjective. Somebody else might have a completely different perspective than somebody else. But I don't think relatability was ever the problem. I think what Jim said is absolutely right, where I used to get like everyone was like one of the finest actors. I'm talking about years, and they'd be like one of the finest actresses of our country, but it didn't translate into work. I got awards, but it didn't translate into work, and it's pointless. It's really pointless. I mean, I want validation. Obviously, I want validation, but if that validation is only good enough to decorate my wall, then it's I mean it's redundant.
Right.
I've been working for like 25, 30 years. I've actually started work in the last 4 years. My career has been more about waiting than actually working. So yeah, so I mean, I don't think there's a problem with relatability. And in fact, I love what he said is that I love this young generation.
Yeah.
It is not easy to stay relevant, but it's also not difficult to stay relevant. So when I'm not just people who've seen me in television, and but there are youngsters of 17, 18, and coming up to me and saying, "Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for," and it feels good. It feels okay. I'm still relevant. I'm not, you know, um, into oblivion. But I don't know if it works the same way with the makers. That's why I said relatability is never the problem with the audience.
The reason I ask is because I had a conversation with Manoj Bajpayee in the middle of COVID. We did an Adda with him, a virtual Adda about maybe 2.5 years ago. And I thought he put it very nicely. He said, the old star you'd look up at, and he was just this Maryada Purushottam, this guy who just, he was Superman, he was Spider-Man, he was all those things. Whether it was a Bachchan, whether it was, he was just this guy who just was the ideal, and he was anti-establishment when he had to be. He was protecting the establishment when he had to be. He was always fighting the good fight, and he was just a larger-than-life person, and you just looked up at him, And so his stardom or his fan base came from just the fact that he was such an unattainable perfection in a sense. And now the way that the star of how he described it, and I kind of thought that was a cool way of thinking about it, is that you're looking down at your screen. And so now it's about relatability, is that X factor that kind of makes you that star. So that's why I was actually asking that question.
I think two things. One, if you actually, I don't think artists measure fame. I think people measure artists' fame, and other people do. But I think were you to do that, it's actually a very humbling experience to, okay, the third movie I ever did, right? I was in a boat, and we were in some boating scene in this lake, and I was with a very famous star, and everybody was waving at her. And one guy said my name because I was new. I got very excited, and I waved back. And she held my hand, and she said, "Never wave back. If you deny them love, it'll give you power and mystery over them." Now, what I've always had a hard time to reconcile is stand-up is based upon being accessible. It's based upon being entirely open. And so this felt performative and kind of terrifying. And so I think everybody has to find their own system with what that goal is. But if you actually measure it, it means nothing. Okay, uh, I said this to Shefali the other day. Like I can get 2 to 4,000 people in a room together in any major city in the world right now.
And
So,
I'm witness to that. I was there last week and it was packed.
right?
And
So I'm as famous as an H&M sale. I'm as famous as 40% off on chaddis at H&M. So don't measure your fame. You know what I mean? Let other people do it.
Man, you should never talk to any advertiser, any newspaper. I mean, you're going to just kill our business like this. Hierarchy. Has hierarchy changed a lot in the last 25, 30 years? And since you started, I mean, Shefali, you've seen, you've worked with all kinds of stars. And in fact, I wanted to bring this up. I just discovered, you played Akshay Kumar's mother
Yes.
and you're younger to him.
Yes.
Yeah,
Was I drunk? Was I drunk?
Tell more,
No, I
please.
wasn't.
So actually, we'll get into that.
Don't be mean.
I'm not being mean.
Of course you're being mean.
How am I being mean?
I have a logic why I did it.
No, I'm
I will tell both of you all.
I'm laughing at the situation.
You played Amitabh Bachchan's wife, Akshay Kumar's mother, in 2005. We had Alia Bhatt for an Adda last year, and I saw that movie before it released, and you were the object of desire of a 23-year-old in that movie. So it's great. Between 2005,
How was he
Darlings.
playing? He was playing 23 in that.
I didn't ask him his age.
I don't think he was playing 23. Was he playing 23?
Should be called Roshan.
he was very young.
No,
I
I
don't know,
think
whatever.
he's
He
a
was
bit
okay,
older
30
than
years old, whatever.
Akshay Kumar was playing 23.
No,
Are you here on this
Yeah.
like with us?
Episode Akshay Kumar at 23, and I'm like,
No, what is
that's an acting job.
Roshan.
Roshan.
He was a young guy. We all
Yeah.
thought that he was into Alia, but then he kind of. I mean, I hope it's not a spoiler alert here. Everybody hasn't seen Darlings, but he was actually into you, and that was a great. So it's a great evolution between Waqt and Darlings. But you worked with all these stars. It was very clear on. It's always been very clear on set, right? Like who sets the calendar, who's the guy, or the woman who's kind of, the set's kind of revolving around. Has OTT kind of changed that a bit, or?
Honestly, I'll tell you, I've had the pleasure of working with incredible people. And I'm not saying it because it's politically correct. I mean it. When I did Monsoon Wedding or I did Satya, it was an ensemble cast. We were all together. From Nasir Bhai to, Tilottama, who was a newcomer. We were all equal. We were all characters. The same goes for Satya. And I think both these films are cult films.
Yeah.
I have probably worked with one director and one actor who was extremely offensive. Extremely offensive. Besides that, I've worked with directors who actually think actors are not just actors, they're collaborators. Where they say, okay, this is what I have created, now take it forward from here.
This is where she draws the line.
That's it. I
Jim,
promise I'll never play Akshay Kumar's mother ever again in my life.
Jim, you had a response to this hierarchy question.
Did I?
I heard some voice from your mind.
No. I'm just thinking. Yeah, I'm just thinking about how, you're talking about how this all revolves around mainstream Bollywood stars and stuff, and all the questions have also revolved around mainstream Bollywood stars. And is there any other questions about non-star Bollywood-related mainstream kind of questions?
Real character type.
Like I'm good at acting.
Yeah,
sort of.
I think
I
I'm
can
good
answer
at
acting questions really well.
Tell me the last time, and I'm gonna let the audience ask the acting questions because obviously I'm kind of disappointing Jim a lot.
No, not disappointing.
With my Bollywood piece, but no, is there that one time where you felt that there was a performance of yours?
Generally, what she's saying is right. Mostly, it is that people think of them as characters and as actors, and most of the new crop, they all want to do well and they want to prove themselves as actors and not just this constantly changing concept of what a star is, which is potential. Anyway, so Mostly, no, not at all. We're doing a scene. We're working on a scene together. Every now and then, there has been a obnoxious experience where you just hope you never have to work in that kind of scenario again, because you realize that it's not collaborative and it's not fun, and you kind of don't want to be there because you're uh
Not
you're
respected.
yeah, you're a piece of furniture that can be moved there or can be moved there depending on the whim of somebody else, which isn't very fun or pleasurable to be involved with, especially if you have think you're a good actor or whatever, whatever it is, or that you've come prepared, or you've come with ideas, or you really want to play with the blocking and you want to see how the scene unfolds, and you come in, instead you're told, well, she was looking there during her close-up, where so now go stand there. You're like, oh, okay, where's she? No, she's gone to change.
Mm.
Oh, so we'll finish the rest of the scene now without her? Yeah, go and put your hand on thin air when you're supposed to be putting it on a shoulder.
And that's
It happens. But again, it's not fun to talk about or experience or any of it, really.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
Is there that one performance of yours which you thought, where you kind of gave it your all and you thought it was like this, you were very proud of your own work, and sort of people around you working the project were very happy with it, but you thought it didn't get the response you wanted?
No, I don't think so. I think I've been lucky like that.
Yeah.
There've been some things where you put a lot into it, and then maybe it doesn't have that much of a life. But thinking of it, no, not none are coming to mind where I'm like, oh, I really wish this really got out there. Oh, there was a project, actually. There was a project called Beneath the Sea of Lights that I was really excited about prior to getting there. And even during the filming, and I really thought that I had done a great job, and then the film just never had a life. It just kind of vanished. That's disappointing. Yeah.
But the fact that you had these roots in theater,
Hmm.
where the feedback is just so instantaneous, as opposed to
It's the same on set. I mean, that people say that it's not the same, but it is the same. You do have an audience. There are people behind the monitor. There are people watching. There are assistants everywhere. There's your co-actors. There's the DOP.
but their opinions on set have repercussions. That it's their opinion. You know who they are. You know what they do. So then it's different from like an audience which is anonymous.
No, for a moment they're just audience members. For between action and cut, sometimes they really are just audience members, and I do feed off that, and I do enjoy that, and I know if I'm just off that day, and I know I feel that everyone can feel it, that it's a bit like, haha, let him finish and we'll get to the good stuff, afterwards. Or you feel that everyone is in sync with you, and that it's going really well, and it's gonna be a good take, and it's gonna be amazing, and there were extras, and everybody is watching. Everybody is watching. So I know what you're saying. It's not the same level. It's not the same amount of people. But if you're sensitive enough to it, which I guess because of the theater training, I am sensitive to it. I feel there's always an audience.
There's a lot of power. I've been told. I'm not in the film world at all, but a lot of power the editor has today more than they had earlier. So there's also that the edit on the edit bay, a lot kind of gets made or unmade, which is less the case in comedy, I'm assuming, because that's
Yeah, I mean, can I cuss on this or can I not cuss?
you can, of course.
If I fuck up, I find out in 5 seconds, right? When I'm in front of an audience, and if I do well, I find out in 5 seconds as well. Now I'm directing something, and
Yeah.
it's terrifying to know that I'll have to wait sometimes 6 months or 7 months to find out if I got it wrong. And really, I do believe that if anybody gets it wrong, it's the director who kind of champions everybody. Actors are tools, DPs are tools, but the director kind of infects everybody with their madness. So the kind of conviction you have to have in what's in your head being good is immeasurable. So yeah.
And that's my last question. I'll get to the audience, and a lot of people want to talk to you about a lot of things, but and maybe this can qualify Jim as a non-Bollywood question. What does it take a certain kind of person, right, to have that conviction, to pull out a story out of thin air, to to get a whole set together. I just feel it takes a lot of conviction you have in yourself, and that's why very often we see directors, even big stars, actors, you know, being a little egoistic, being a little bit, kind of look, in a sense, looking down at the audience. You know, that don't bother me. You know, they have a it's a me versus them. It's a me. I'm different. There's a certain kind of ego that typically you see big directors or big stars with.
I would agree that I would disagree that it's more middle level. Like I heard it put to me really, really well that in a company that's doing well sometimes, the chairman and the CEO, usually sense of humor, usually conviction, usually humble. The intern, usually quite humble, looking to impress everybody. The VP of sales, that guy's an asshole across every single company. Sorry if you have one, but because he has to impress that guy and oppress that guy.
Yeah.
So I find that a lot of artists, before they found their voice, the minute they found their voice, then they're supremely secure about reviews, about failure, about knowing when they got it wrong. And it's the same with all these other things, the actors as well. It's the middle level that where they're unsure of their voice, they don't know what it is, and so they feel like they have to impress and oppress at some level.
Shefali, do you agree?
Uh, what?
So Akshay Kumar,
See, he's been asking questions to both of you, so I sleep off in between. So when he comes to me, I'm like, huh? Kya hua? Kya pucha?
Do you think megalomania is an important part of being a director in general, or do you think it's a more?
I think it's stupid. He's right. They're assholes. Whoever have this. First and foremost, nobody's larger than life, and you're really not underwired bras given to women. Seriously, you're not like a gift of God. But yes, a lot of people do feel. Yeah, I will talk to you
Okay,
later.
okay,
I will talk. I will discuss. We will talk.
Not Akshay Kumar, right?
No. That we'll talk. Oh God, so much to discuss. But I don't even know how they live with themselves. I really don't. I mean, and it's like, मतलब, कौन से झंडे गाड़ दिए तुमने? Okay, fine. It's a privilege that you look at my work and it reaches so many people. But there is a bunch of people who look up to you all. And like he's been saying, if it isn't for the audience, who am I? But there is a difference between taking your work seriously and taking yourself seriously. A lot of people take themselves seriously, which is like, I am like, don't mess with me. And I'm like, what you asked earlier about this hierarchy, and you spoke about actors and directors. I need to say this. I remember recently I was doing a film 2 years ago, and we had a very senior DOP. Like, he's looked up, like, in awe. And the director was a first timer and said, there's a star and inka shot lena hai, ye star hai, inka shot lena hai. And she's getting out, Shefali is getting out of the van, iska shot lena hai. And he loudly said it in front of the entire, ab kya sabka shot lete phirenge? I can't tell you how terrible I felt. And all the respect I had for this man went right down the drain. I think he's an asshole, So he's bought, and I now when I look at it, I feel pity for him. I really feel sorry for that person. And strangely so, they had to reshoot that scene. But you're being so stupid about it. And let people decide how important and how prestigious is what you are doing, or how important you are, or how much respect. खुद ही बोलेंगे, खुद नहीं किया, खुद ही खुद को medal देंगे, तो फिर, I mean, where was the need for any kind of give and take?
I think the megalomania. I guess I think in terms of a director, you do have to be a bit of a megalomaniac, but in a nice way. You have to kind of make friends with your megalomania and be like, okay, this is going to happen. At the end of the day, it is me pulling an idea, a story, a thing out of my brain and saying, watch this. This is great. This is really good stuff. So I do believe that there is a kind of, that's the danger, right? Yeah. Is it arrogance? Is it confidence? Is it megalomania in a way that can still let everyone on set feel that they collaborate with you, that they can potentially give you feedback and give you advice, and having the power to know that, but the final word does rest in me. And if I do listen and take this advice, no one is going to come and say, Jim told you to shoot it this way. At the end of the day, it'll be about, it's my name on the thing. So I do believe that they are and should be even a little bit megalomaniacal, but in a way that is open to collaboration, and ideally the devotion is not to them on a set, but is to the project. If it's to the project and you can convince everyone to be devoted to the project, then that's the most wonderful, incredible thing. And you deserve your megalomania, and go right ahead, and I'm listening to you and I'm ready to argue with you. But also eventually, if you say, no, Jim, no, I hear you. I hear all your arguments. I just need one take where you give me exactly what I want. I gotta give it. I mean, there's no question. I have to be able to reach into my bag of whatever my tricks are and find a way to change my mind about my approach to the scene and give the person exactly what they want, because they are the director at the end of the day. Yeah.
And there is also a very fine line between self-respect and ego.
Yeah.
Between being egoist. I remember somebody telling me this, and it made so much sense. He said, there is a difference between ego and pride. Don't lose your pride. And it made so much sense to me. There is a grace in pride. But if you think you're greater than mankind, then, well, I really don't know how to deal with this.
Sure. Question from the audience. Now's that time. Yeah, well, handle back, wait up, straight away. Please introduce yourself.
He's the one who went to me.
Yeah, is it?
Hi,
Better view.
my name is Anshu Dorairaj. Veer, I'm a stalker, but you haven't reverted to me for the longest time.
I'm so sorry.
I taught your wife pottery in Goa,
Oh, wow.
and I made
She's not very good. I'm just going to be honest with you. But, but I'm happy that she enjoyed the hobby. I'm in so much trouble right now. My God.
Well, you were absconding,
Yes,
so I also made the placard for Watson.
For Watson, thank you so much. That's the context is our dog passed away, and Shivani made a lovely pottery piece that said "Best doggy in the world." That's in our garden right now. So thank you very much.
So two of those broke, and I made the third one.
Which is
without
what I was
telling-
saying about the pottery before we.
Yeah, but she's good. And Shefali, lovely meeting you. You look gorgeous.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry I confused you with Sonali.
Sonali Bendre, Sonali Kulkarni, Sonali,
Sonali, the third one.
the one who stays next to our house. See, I knew it.
Is there a question here, or are we?
Yeah. So, so my question really is
To Jim. You did this, you did.
So Jim, of course, I met before the pee break, but I'm a banker turned potter.
She said you're a very good actor, blah blah blah, and we was right in front of the bathroom, and I was like, right now I'm acting like I don't need to pee. And then she let me go into the bathroom.
So I'm a banker turned potter. I make matti ke bartan. So I could work in New York, and that's where I discovered this, and it was a ghost moment for me. My question really is, what does it take for people like us who are artistic, creative, to get support from the fraternity and from sponsors or mentors to get us space and to create things which everybody loves? And just in a city like Bombay, especially South Bombay.
So I'll just kind of pivot this question a little bit more. in a direction that might appeal to everyone, here, is that the commerce of what you guys do, I mean, it's much more lucrative now than it was 10 years ago. Would you accept that much? It's changed at least?
For us,
Yes?
no, not too much.
10 years ago, I was doing plays where they gave me 500 rupees per show, so I really don't have a clue. No joke, no lie.
And sometimes I have paid people कि please मुझे cast कर दो. It's almost been ये रखो.
Weird, comedy has evolved a lot, though.
Huh?
Comedy's evolved a lot, though.
Yeah, but at some point we had to take control of our own enterprise, right? At the end of the day.
You made your own kind of whole setup. Is your production company that's...
Yeah, absolutely. There are no middlemen between me and my audience, not one.
I see.
But that took work. That took a long time to say, okay, I will own data. I will directly reach out to my audience. I don't want to have to put up standees and have 2 godfathers and 5 kingmakers and 5 PR agencies, etc., etc., etc. I'm just going to do it myself. And you have to be okay with the fact that the room will get smaller when you begin to do that until the room, inshallah, gets bigger. So stand-up comedians actively 7-8 years ago had to take control of our art form and take it back from the suits.
And were there any, I mean, were you the only guy successful at doing that? Because I feel like when I go for another show, there are like 5 middlemen. There's a Book My Show. There are like, I mean, it's not just...
Look, I think in any art form per se, there will be 5 or 6 people that are leading the charge in terms of structural innovation. So I'll give credit to Zakir along with myself. I'll give credit to an Aditi Mittal along with myself. But I really think the reason we did it was A, because we were being shafted on some deals, but B, also because we wanted to make the audience experience so much simpler as well.
Right.
It's got to be easier for you to buy a ticket. If there's one thing that I'm proud of, the Book My Show annual report came out last year. Out of the top 10 live selling events in India, 2 are stand-up comedy tours.
Yes.
2 of them. Like I'm underneath Diljit Dosanjh, which is insane. And Zakir's in there too, and Bassi's in there too. So, and it's because we really took charge of that and said, no, we're going direct.
And the fact that a lot of what you can say people get offended by anything anyway.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
These days. And the fact that can become something. It can spiral into something political. Anything that anybody does can become political now. It's very difficult to kind of predict that. Do you feel the need to kind of politics-proof your content now? And it's actually a question for all 3 of you. Do you feel the need to politics-proof whatever you say, you do, whatever roles you take up? Or you just feel like you need to be authentic and kind of expect the commerce will follow because you're being authentic to yourself?
I don't think people are... I mean, you've been to a show of mine.
Yes.
Right? So you know that there'll be maybe 3 or 4 political jokes.
Yes.
But it's a show about life. In a 100-minute show, you see a clip on the internet and you assume that's all a comedian does. But if you've been to a show, there's a lot more that we do.
Yeah.
Also, the novelty of certain political targets is gone.
I see.
The way we say it is, why would I charge you money to do something that you do on WhatsApp for free? So if you come to... There is no novelty in the Trump joke anymore, for instance. Every hacky late-night comedian did it for 4 years. If you go up at Carnegie Hall and do a Trump joke, they'll murder you. So I don't think it pays any bills, and I don't think there's any novelty in it at all. So you don't have to worry about it so much.
Try politics-proof?
I have to be very, very honest. I am not at all inclined towards politics. And I mean...
That might not stop your content from becoming political. You have no control over that.
No, but I don't think there is anyone worth putting on a pedestal or running down. Because I can't comment on something I don't know. Right? I just don't know it. And if I don't know it, whatever I'm saying is not coming from that context.
Sure.
It's really not. It's not, maybe if I do it like this. And I mean, I work from my heart completely.
Sure.
So yeah, somebody might not like what I do, but then it's their prerogative to like or not like. But politics is something I don't touch with a barge pole because I'm really not interested. I am an illiterate as far as that is concerned, and I don't think I'm missing out on anything in life.
Jim, how much do you respond to? How often you think about making your stuff that you're doing politics proof?
Oh, I don't think about it at all. No, but yeah, it's anyway. If I was involved in writing or if I was involved with directing, maybe I'd really have to think about it. But at the moment, I don't have to.
Questions? Yes, please. Devna. Get a mic for them.
Anand, I have to congratulate you on
Yeah.
your choice of guests. Really, they're so good at what they do, but they've been real, humble, funny, and have none of those unnecessary trappings that you find in people in their profession. So amazing, congratulations. Jim, I want to ask you, you have this incredible fluidity in your characters, in your costumes, in your way of speaking. It's very comfortable, relatable, and I think it's great for a lot of men to relate to your masculinity, which is so comfortable and not overly out there. What was your upbringing like? How have you, you know,
Yeah.
I have to congratulate your parents because
My ma is sitting right
you
there.
don't have this, insanity of,
It's all
that
her. It's all
insane
her.
macho-ness that you have to prove as
Right.
an actor in this profession. So, yeah, how did you grow up so comfortable?
I don't know. What do you think, ma?
Oh,
She's like,
I really hope the camera caught that. No.
I don't know. I don't know. I guess I just haven't. I just have. It just seems like anything that. Eh, I guess it's actually. I guess it's just a problem with authority in general, and anything that seems like it's stamping its authority all the time is just unappealing to me. And I guess traditional macho masculinity is just one big arrow of like we have to stamp our authority, and it just doesn't seem exciting or interesting to me. I'd rather be flowing with the room or grooving or like floating about or swimming. I'd rather move through life swimming than rigid and certain and defined. Yeah, I guess. I think also everyone has it. Everyone knows this at this point. It's like an old thing to say now. Masculine, feminine inside everyone, blah blah blah. You're balancing it constantly. There are two wolves, whatever you want to say. But it is there. And the more we get in touch, the more you get in touch with yourself, actually, the more you realize that it is there, and it might as well express itself.
Please.
Hi, well, Greg Pardo. I'm the spokesperson for the U.S. Consulate. Thanks for doing some stuff with my predecessor before. So,
Thank you.
well,
Thank you
first
for
of
all
all,
those visas.
no problem. Well, first of all, just all three of you have been great. I've seen you on. My favorite show still is Made in Heaven, and obviously the first film I saw of yours is Monsoon Wedding back in the day, and I love all your shows and everything, but Delhi Belly is still my favorite
Yeah.
movie with you, man. It makes me laugh. But one thing I want to say is that, and I'm here joined with my colleagues from the consulate, is that one of the big things that we always push for is for more of not just India to learn more about America, but also America to learn more about India. And how have you seen your work really help show not just the United States, but show the world other aspects of India they've never seen before? Because I think in the past 10 years, it's not just that one movie or whatever stereotype is being pushed of India back in the United States or anywhere in the West. But now it's just you go in and I'm just amazed to see how now the world has an opportunity to see different aspects of India. So how have you seen your work show India to the world?
You first, ladies first.
okay. Well, I have to give credit to the OTT platforms. I mean, like Netflix. If it wasn't there, I don't know whether my work would have reached across all across the globe. So it's incredible, not just as a creative person, but also as a student of creativity. I can watch content from everywhere. I can watch performances. I can watch it in complete silence or just with subtitles or in a language that I don't understand. But so that change has come about because of OTT. So we have to give credit to that. Also, I think there are more. I think people are being brave enough to also tell real stories, and we're getting pretty unapologetic about it. So I don't really know what people around the world are going to say about what India is. I think it's unfair to kind of conceptualize the entire country and all these people just by one particular show or one particular film that you watch or one particular character. It's so vibrant, it's so rich, and it's beautiful, it's ever growing, it's rising and it falls too. But that's how everyone is, because it's a bunch of people together, you know. But I think because we're putting out real stories, also what is very with the OTT platform, what has happened is I we are seeing work from across. It's not a competition, it's an inspiration. So all of us want to say, okay, let's top this, let's make it even better. And suddenly it's not about the language, it's not about this geographical space, it's just about emotional language that everyone across relates to and understands. And I really hope, I remember, I have to say this, I remember when my kids were really young and I went to drop them to US because they wanted to train to be soccer players. And I went for a school moms like get together or whatever. And ek to I was new and like, so I was really nervous. And I was talking to this person and she said, uh, I'm really, I'm surprised you can speak in English. I was like, English? I can speak in 5 languages. Every 200 meters, 200 kilometers in my country, the language changes. And I know 5 of them. So, but I assume everyone's grown up. I mean, people out there as well as us, we've all grown up together. And I think somewhere there is a sync of understanding. We're not so different.
Yeah, I think there used to be, until recently, 5 palatable things that America or the UK, etc., knew about us. And sometimes the content that got recognition represented those 5 palatable things. You know, uh, at least comedically, what I can say, America is a country where what you find funny is deeply rooted in identity. It's very closely linked. There are people who find Seinfeld funny. There are people who find John Oliver funny. And then there are people who find Joe Rogan funny. And their ideology and their identity is very clearly defined. And sometimes they can't laugh at each other so much. When I come to America, I get to broad base tackle your entire culture without any agenda whatsoever. So, in fact, I find more comedic freedom to make fun of all of America than an American comedian would sometimes, because the agenda is not identity rooted whatsoever. But I think because you consume those palatable versions, now the desire became, just take me someplace new, and why the hell not? When I see a Dave Chappelle show, Dave Chappelle is like, I'm going to tell you about my farm in Ohio. uh, I'm going to Ohio in like 2 weeks, but I've never been before, and until very recently, till I needed to sell tickets, didn't particularly care about Ohio. But I'd still go on that journey with Dave Chappelle. So why can't I take you back to Noida? Why can't I take you back to Bengaluru? Or why can't I take you to tell you about the Andheria Mod ki Chudail, who's a witch in Delhi, right? And you come on that journey with me. I think we're at that point, you know?
Yeah, it's just always been true, and it'll continue to be
Yeah.
true. The more local and rooted and true you are to an actual experience, the more universal immediately it becomes. It's just the unwritten law. It just is the case. It always will be. I remember when I was really young and I was younger and I watched Y Tu Mama Tambien.
Yeah.
And they're driving along on the highway and they stop, and for a moment the camera just wanders into the back of the little restaurant on the side of the road and tells us a little history of the people working there, and you get to see in the back of the kitchen, and I'm like, this is a dhaba. This is exactly a dhaba, or like exactly the same. There's no difference here at all. And I just remember thinking that if the filmmaker hadn't done this little extra journey that wasn't immediately related to the story, right? It's a little aside that we go into the back and we hear about this place and we come back to it. I would have never thought, oh my God, Mexico and India are so similar. It's great. It's insane how similar they are. And I think that'll just always be true. Always be true. In any place, with any little roadside area, if we go into the back and we really see how it's all going together, there'll be a universal kind of experience of it.
And I think, my favorite thing, just how time comes around, is when I was in college and I'd get my American friends to watch, Hindi movies. They'd be like, we love it, but, it's very glamorous and there's very loud costumes and it all feels like there are revenge storylines and the guy falls down from a building and he doesn't die, etc., etc. And then you go and make 150 Marvel movies.
Yeah.
What do you think Marvel is? It's your Bollywood.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Sunny
exactly
Deol wearing
the
a
same
mask.
thing.
Absolutely.
No, but do you guys all believe that our stuff has traveled like the other foreign country stuff has? Not American, but like like a Lupin or a Squid Games or a Money Heist. These kind of. I'm watching a Norwegian political drama called Occupied. I'm loving it. It's.
I think it's starting to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if
It's not just the NRIs. It's not just the.
No, when I went to LA a few years ago to do these meetings and talk to people and everything, it was February and then March was COVID. So nothing came of those meetings. But all anybody knew me for was Made in Heaven. Nobody had watched anything else, but everyone had watched Made in Heaven. And it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's very interesting, because that wasn't the same demographic of people that I was meeting here, for example. Maybe not everyone had seen Made in Heaven, whereas there, that's the only thing they knew. So I think it is happening. I think it will continue to happen as the quality of our shows and movies continue to just improve.
And I think a show like Made in Heaven will give them imperfect, flawed Indians with nuance that is so important to put on screen. I think a lot of diaspora programming, in fact, is a lot more conservative than our programming.
100%.
I used to have this line where I'm like, if you want your kid to be a virgin at 25, you raise them in New Jersey, not New Delhi, because it's a far more conservative community. So if they want to see Indians who have imperfections and flaws and the audacity of violence or the audacity of drugs or the audacity of sex or the audacity of bad choices, who don't always have to be this perfect minority, you'll find that programming from India.
Shefali?
I think I've blanked out. What is?
Akshay Kumar is.
No! What is it? Tell now.
Do you feel the need to kind of think about the American audience or an outside of India audience?
How do you think Indian stuff is getting there? Like, how do you think you're representing Indianness?
I mean, the fact that we are all nominated for the Emmys,
Yes,
the fact
I know,
that
that's
Delhi
why we're
Crime
here.
won the Emmy, it was the first Indian show to win the Emmy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're making our mark. There is a lot. I wouldn't say we've completely, put ourselves out there, because the moment I say it, it kind of curbs growth. But we've just begun, and we're going to explore, and we're going to fly, and I think it's great.
Yeah.
Taliyan.
Any more questions here? Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you for a beautiful discussion. My name is Rashmi Bansal. I'm an author of non-fiction books. So I'm really interested to know, how do you prepare to portray these real life characters on screen? Like Shefali, your character in Delhi Crime, the first season, was a real police officer whom we hadn't heard about. So did you meet her and understand her, try to portray her? Or did you come up with your own interpretation? And similarly for Jim, I think you portrayed a very iconic figure, Homi Bhabha, whom I'm really interested in because my father worked with Homi Bhabha.
Wow.
We grew up in this TIFR campus. I've been scared to show him that Rocket Boys, thinking he's going to say, no, Homi Bhabha
Nothing
wasn't
happened
like
like
that. No, I mean, the events happened, but did you go there and study him, see his paintings, read about, or do you think that when you portray these people, you as an actor should just take an artistic liberty and imagine what they were like? I mean, how much of it is real and how much is your own contribution
While
as
you
an
still
actor?
remember the
Thank you. So before I forget, so yes, it is based on a real life person. I had the honor of meeting Chaya ma'am, Chaya Sharma. She's the one who cracked the case. I had the honor of meeting her, but I met her for 2 hours over a coffee, and you cannot absorb an entire person in 2 hours. It's not possible. But I think, I mean, and she was very kind. She was available every time I had a question. But I think all those are technical things. There was more, as far as particularly Delhi Crime 1 goes, she had cracked the case, but what she felt is what all of us felt. We felt pain, we were angry, it was personal, and we were asking the same questions. So the emotion was right, but there is a protocol of being in that uniform. There really is a protocol. Like, I'll give you an example, which I think is very, very interesting. I remember we were shooting the interrogation scene, and for me, it's Mr. Bachchan sitting like this. So I'm like, sleeves have to be rolled up. I mean, come on. Like, I'm getting an opportunity of a lifetime to like sit like Mr. Bachchan. Like, I'm not going to let it go. So I said, let me ask Chaya ma'am. So I called her and I asked her, I said, can I roll my sleeves up? Because I don't know what is the protocol as far as the uniform is concerned. She said, just remember that it was in January, and it was one of the coldest Januaries there was. And we did not have a heater in the room. So that kind of answered the question.
So you
But
didn't roll your sleeves up then, right?
no, I didn't.
You didn't.
Put it down. Like, yeah. But I think also, for example, I've done Gandhi, my father. When I was playing Kasturba, people know about her. She's like worshipped. You don't mess with that. And why would we? I mean, we respect these people. That's why we're doing it. But then you have to go into every single detail. And that doesn't just become my responsibility. It's also my director's responsibility. As far as Vartika was concerned, she had to become her own person. I mean, I'm grateful to have a brilliant blueprint that Rishi put out and the help of Chaya ma'am. But finally, she had to become her own person.
Jim,
Yeah.
there's been a lot of load on you then, because Homi Bhabha was like this incredible.
Right. So yeah. So
You
Dr.
remember the
Bhabha,
question?
luckily, if I had met him, it would have been very spooky. But lots of people have written about him, and again, what she's saying is more or less right. The pressure first falls on the writers, the research team, the director, right? And they provide you with things to help your research along, and then of course you go down avenues based on what you get interested in or what is pertinent for the scene. Because I can't be Dr. Bhabha, it's impossible, right? But I can try as best as I can to imbibe some of the quality. No, forget about even imbibe the qualities, to portray some of the qualities. So we did read so many wonderful things about him. He was always described as a complete man, they used to say, like a Renaissance man. Not only was he interested in science, but in politics, in architecture, in art, in painting himself. He could play the violin as good as anybody in a symphony orchestra. And despite all of that, he also had a very active social life. He was fun to be around. He had great wit. He didn't take himself very seriously. So then you try to concoct this character based on all of these things you've heard about him, based on his own writing. I mean, he says very openly, I can't increase the longevity of my life by living longer. It's impossible. But what I can do is increase its intensity. Intensity in how I follow art, and how I follow music, and how I read poetry, and how I read literature, in how I interact with other human beings. So this was all outlined by him. Now, how do you construct the scene to reflect that? That's the part where hopefully the writer has done an incredible job, or the writer has created the foundation enough for you and the director to now play around with the structure of the scene and the text, and eventually get to a person who thinks faster than both me and the director combined. And that's the truth of it. So how do you represent somebody who thinks faster than you? You struggle with the problems, and you struggle with the problems for days, weeks, maybe months, whereas the character solves it in a split second. And that, to me, was the most fun of working on Rocket Boys, was jamming with the director to come up with the approach that someone who thinks a lot faster, deeper, and broader than us would do. Yeah.
Yes, please go ahead. And then we'll ask Suvir, and then the gentleman in the back.
Hey guys, delightful evening. My name is Rohini. I happen to be a kind of culture researcher as a part of what I do. I have a casual question, which is like a follow up to what you guys were just discussing. I have personally gone down a lot of rabbit holes watching all of you. Uh, Delhi crime, got me to once again go back, read things. Shefali ma'am, you did a lovely short film in Ajib Tasta that got me reading into a lot of sign language stories. It was very, very charming. Stay with me for a long time. I think Rocket Boys has been probably the only avenues for a progressive person today to feel patriotic and dig into their own country really deeply, historically again. So the question is really for all of you, maybe Veer, even in your work, have you gone down a rabbit hole through anything that you've played or done, which has become a deep interest in your own life because of that work that you did?
Well, I just play Veer Das, so not quite an iconic character at all. No, I think at some point, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I kind of had a revelation that uh, any comedian can make you laugh, but can you feel like you know the comedian um, at the end of their routine? That's what makes a George Carlin memorable, or that's what makes a Richard Pryor memorable. Is you felt like you were friends, and you felt like you were allies, and you were in their life story. And the first special that I did was, which was nominated for an Emmy, was Veer Das for India, and that's very much like a Rajma Chawal special. It's comfort food. It's Parle Ji and Old Monk and all these things that we love, Dil Chahta Hai and Amar Akbar Anthony and all of that stuff. Um, but then after that, I really just started watching great comics to say, can I leave a little bit of myself on stage? So maybe at the end of it, you felt like we got to know each other a little bit. So in that sense, I just started watching great, great, great comedians for a good 2 year period of time.
Veer, if I can just push a little bit on what you just said, and this is just my opinion because I've seen a lot of your stuff. Um, I get a feeling that you're always talking as an outsider to whoever the audience is.
I've been an outsider my entire life. I grew
And
up.
you use that to your advantage.
Well, yeah, I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, where I was the Indian in Nigeria. Then when I was 8, I got sent to boarding school where I was the Nigerian kid in India. Then I went to Delhi Public School where I was the privileged boarding school kid in Delhi Public School. Then I went to America where I was the kid from public school in Delhi. And then I came back to India where I was the guy from American drama school in the film industry. Uh, I'm an outsider who works in 3 different industries. But
He's played more characters than I have in my life.
but I get to, like I said to them also, I get to observe you from an agenda of friendship, and I get to take the best of the bubble before the bubble takes the best of me.
So when just that 2 Indians thing, I thought about it a lot, and we were discussing it a lot. And all.
Yeah, I feel like it hasn't been discussed enough. Not like there have been 45 news channels.
One last question. No, but how much do you identify as Indian? Because of all the is that a big part of your identity when you're in America or when you're in India, or are you like saying I'm a global citizen? I'm just going to make fun of whatever.
I'm a citizen of India, and every fabric of my being identifies as Indian. But that doesn't mean that I identify to your version of India.
Yeah.
There are too many versions of India for me to identify to just one of them.
Definitely
How about
2?
Yeah, right. How about we just focus on the fact that we have one thing in common, which is that we both love the hell out of our country.
Yeah.
So if that's what it means, and I do think following the law, all the things
Being
that are in our
citizen,
civics textbooks, outside of that has to come from the fact of loving deeply your country.
Yeah.
I take immense pride that
you think about that when you're doing a stand-up, like that you're representing your country, you love your country. Is that a part of when you're writing a joke?
I would submit to you that it's in every word that I write. It's not an easy thing to write a show called For India about 155 topics when you could be telling gym jokes, or my wife doesn't listen to me jokes, etc., etc. Going to the gym jokes, right? I research it. I've written 2 shows about India, the history of India
Yeah.
and Veerdas for India. I don't do that because I'm casual about my country. I do that because I love it.
And are you different from most comics with that, or do you think every comic sort of paints their nationhood on their in their?
I mean, I've said this before, but I don't think as you can reverse engineer what a show is going to be. I just think as you get older as a comic, who you are falls onto the page. And I spend 75% of my year missing home. And I spend 75% of my year reuniting people who miss home. When you come to my show, when you come to Carnegie Hall, or when you come to the Kennedy Center, you come to the Chicago Theatre or the Sydney Opera House, you have not been in a room with that many Indians maybe in the last 10 years. I take you home. That's what I do. So that doesn't come from anything but love.
Jim, you want to talk about the? Okay,
No, what was the question?
No, no, it's fine.
I
Because
forget this one.
Other questions? Yes. Suvir, please.
Oh,
Rohit?
the rabbit hole. Have
The
we
rabbit hole,
gone
sorry,
on any
yes, I
rabbit hole?
also-
Yeah. Have you gone
went
into
to
any
different
rabbit hole
rabbit
after
holes.
someone played?
I don't. First is if I'm approaching or I've just gotten a character, which means I've gotten a script in my hand after the first one line narrated to me. I don't know how to approach it besides going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I want to go down the rabbit hole. I want to be obsessed with it. I want it to take everything out of me. And when people ask me, how do you disconnect? I say, because I've given everything I have. I'm empty. I don't have anything to take back. Uh, how much a character leaves with me or vice versa, I cannot quantify it. I don't know when it'll come back. There might be something that Vartika's left with me, or the character from Juice, Manju, has left with me, which I might not even be able to pinpoint, may come up 2 years down the line. Because subconsciously we've shared the same body and soul and mind at a point of time. How poetic is that? Italian. No, what I'm saying is that we've become one person, and there's no other way of doing it. I don't know any other way of doing it.
Jim?
Yeah, many things. For example, with Dr. Bhabha, a thing that will always stick with me is the idea of just how curious he was. He was endlessly curious, and he was unafraid of the hard work required to turn curiosity into expertise. And I just think that that's such a fascinating and interesting character trait, for example. Or when I was doing Padmaavat, Malik Kafur, he is the most interesting character. I mean, it was not explored in the movie because the movie was called Padmaavat. I mean, it wasn't even supposed to be about that whole side of it. But what an interesting guy. He was actually bought as a Hazar Dinari slave in Gujarat, and he was like 1,000 gold pieces for this guy. Alauddin Khilji was absolutely besotted by him to the point where he made him the general of his army. And Malik Kafur would get so irritated. Well, it started more or less as his slave. He was his slave, right? Was a slave, and then became the general of the army. And the years in between were probably not all that happy. And he got tired of the bureaucracy at the court, and then he would go on these giant raiding missions down to the south. He's the guy that brought the Kohinoor diamond to Delhi from down south. He'd come back with treasure, like unspeakable treasure from these raiding parties. He didn't like staying around. Everyone was bitching, the usual court stuff. And eventually he was called back because Alauddin Khilji was sick. He fed him a bunch of poison until he died. He married one of his youngest wives, that actually he had seen the first time he was presented to Alauddin Khilji. He ended up marrying that exact wife, killed a lot of the kids blinded some of them, put an 8-year-old puppet on the throne, and kind of ruled through him for many years. I mean, what a strange and interesting person. Not necessarily good, but then you wonder why does he have so much revenge at the end of his life? What happened to him during that period? I mean, it must not be enjoyable to be a sex slave, right? So what a fascinating and interesting guy.
Suvir, we need to wrap up, getting a little bit late, but
thank you for a great conversation, Veer. When you're not using pronouns for comedy, what do you think of them in India? And Jim, thank you for being that very fluid character. India has changed. I've been a gay man for the last 47 years of my life. And pronouns is something I struggled for 4 years to pen a column for the newspaper, Indian Express. What do you think of them in this India?
The correct usage of pronouns?
But pronouns in general, usage or none, or silencing them or not looking at them.
I'm happy to call you whatever you feel like you deserve to be called, simply because the more fluid and happy your life is, the less rigid my life is. So I think it's an idea of freedom to decide what you will be called instead of other people deciding what to call you. So I'm happy to call you whatever makes you feel good.
As long as you call, yes, wonderful answer. Thank you.
Before we get to the rapid fire, to wrap it up,
okay.
I was waiting for the audience to ask this, but they didn't, so I'm going to ask it. You're thought-provoking. Your shows are thought-provoking. They say tough things. People are getting more and more thin-skinned. I feel around, especially as a news person. It's very difficult not to be pointed a finger at for taking a side. We're just kind of doing the news, but you're constantly being taking a side. I find that very hard in comedy, and you kind of have managed to do it. You managed to kind of say tough things. You make fun of people, and it's the way it should be. And you've been commercially successful at that. You've got a show on Netflix. You've been Emmy nominated. Why hasn't that happened to other comics? Specifically, if I can name one guy, Kunal Kamra, who was, with incredible humor, incredible writing. Why haven't the others been able to do this?
I think the word you're looking for is yet. There should be a yet at the end of that sentence. Why hasn't it happened for them yet? And I'm sure it will. I come from a profession where it's the most democratic profession.
Yes.
It really is. Your youth doesn't matter. Your looks don't matter. Your dad doesn't matter, and your mom doesn't matter when you're on stage. Your fame doesn't matter. If God willing, one is kind enough to receive an Emmy, do you know what would happen if I walked onto a stand-up stage with an Emmy in my hand? It would make my job difficult.
Yeah.
People would be like, we don't give a shit about this.
It's a very anti-establishment. It's a very anti-establishment.
No, it's
profession.
just you are supposed to put us above you. Also, there's enough laughter to go around. There's enough audience to go around. You can watch comedy 5 times a day. तू कितना true crime देखेगा एक दिन में? पांच murder नहीं देखेगा ना? Sorry, Shefali. But नहीं देखेगा ना 5 murder एक दिन में. But you can watch 5 comedy clips. So nobody's success in comedy is at the expense of anybody's success. We have 1.6 billion people who are dying to laugh. It is the best time to be a comic. So it will happen for them.
Fabulous. Okay, quickly, we're going to rapid fire.
Come on, dear. Great.
Okay, so I'm going to do a few common ones for all 3 of you. Answer fast. Please have fun with this. I don't have to tell Veer to do that because he's always having fun.
My PR person is like, we're out of trouble so far. If we can just shut his mouth soon, we'll be okay. Anyway.
The one recent film whose success surprised you first?
Darlings.
Darlings?
It surprised you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like in a good way?
Yeah. In a good way.
Cool. All right.
Okay. Gadar.
Okay.
Good
answer.
Yeah, I mean,
excuse me, madam. It's Gadar 2.
Yeah.
Gadar 2. I'm really apologetic about it.
There's a film called Talk to Me, which is
very nice.
A horror movie that's come out.
The Hand.
The Hand, indie movie about a hand. Please watch it. It's the best horror movie I've seen in the last 5 years. It's damn good.
Past Lives also. Saw it here in Bombay. Fantastic. Incredible.
Okay. One piece of advice you have for somebody who says, I want to be like you.
I'm taken.
um, I'm not my type, so I don't think you should be either.
Some, new aspiring actor
wanna be
comes
just
and
like
say,
you,
I want to grow up. I want to be like Shefali Shah.
You don't want to be like me. I've waited way too long, and I've given birth to two brats, so you don't want that. But there is no instruction booklet.
Okay.
You just got to figure your own.
If you can do anything else and be happy, for God's sake, do that.
Okay, education or experience? What's more important for your profession?
Experience.
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 Okay.
Completely.
The one thing you like about Indian entertainment, because we've not been able to establish whether we can call you Bollywood, mainstream, or star. No, I'm not. So just Indian entertainment. One thing you like about Indian entertainment?
That it's exploring long form storytelling in a very exciting new way.
Shefali?
And it's exploding as well.
That an audience will feel as much as the people on screen or on stage. We have the most feeling audience in the world. I love that.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you don't like about Indian entertainment?
That we have to get accustomed to discomfort in entertainment. That entertainment must include discomfort. I'd love for more of us to know that there must be a discomfort in anything that you see in a piece.
Shefali?
I think the lack of identifying that the actor and the character aren't the same.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Both of them.
It's okay to not like something. Don't watch it.
Yeah.
Okay. The OTT platform you personally spend the most time watching?
Netflix. And Apple. Sorry, I'm not supposed to say it.
You can say it.
Okay.
Veer, until he thinks about it.
Go. No, I'm kidding. Netflix, man.
Netflix.
For sure.
They're both yeah.
I said Apple also.
Represents SonyLIV at some point. Yeah.
You got it.
Probably Netflix and Apple.
So we are not living in a post-truth world. There's truth on the stage. It's perfect. Which word irritates you more, content or crossover?
Content.
They're both annoying if you really want to be annoyed, or you can just ignore it and say, it doesn't work for me. I have a different word for it.
Veer?
Traction.
Traction.
Word traction. And it applies to both of them. Traction irritates me.
Okay. So Shefali, we'll start with you for the individual ones. If there was any other news item or event which you think deserves a show like Delhi Crime?
A lot.
What's the one thing that if you could today decide to?
Unfortunately, so many other crimes that continue to happen in Delhi. I don't know what it's going to take to stop it.
Okay.
I really don't know what it's going to take.
Okay. Winning the Emmy Award or achieving pay parity for women in the industry, what would you, if you had to choose me one of the two that you could manifest?
Why should I choose? I want both.
It's a rapid fire game. You could choose anyone. Manifest
I really want to get the Emmy. So everyone please pray for me. 20th we are getting, please keep your fingers crossed and pray for all three of us.
Yes.
But even if they don't get it, I want it. So I'm just saying, as far as whatever goes, it's assumed that men get paid more than women. But I did a film with Alia. I did a film with Vidya. They both got paid much more than me because they are the ones who get the access to the theater.
Sure.
I do not. What bothers me is the disparity of pay between an actor and a star. That is what bothers me. Because an actor is probably even better than you.
Yeah.
But because he or she is not a star, they don't get the kind of importance which is absolutely due.
Perfect. If you were offered to play a leading role in the Kerala story, would you take it? For background, that's the film that her husband has produced.
Listen,
hitting,
you know
hard
what?
hitting.
No, see that. See, I thought said, I don't have anything to do with politics, Baba. I normally get a lot of love and respect on social media.
Yeah.
I shared the trailer of it. I cannot tell you how badly I got trolled. Like people hated me overnight.
Okay.
And it was something, see, if I was offered it with the evidence, why not? It's as important to be told as Delhi crime is.
Okay.
But if there was no evidence and it was just imaginary, I would be very wary of it. But I know for a fact that there was, I've read the script, I've gone through all those, statements that have come from the government,
Yeah.
from the state. So why not? I mean, it's as important. And I would have played it even if it was a Hindu woman. It was about a woman.
Yeah.
And it was not about, according to me, it was not about a religion. It was about terrorists. There is a difference.
Sure.
I'm so screwed.
If your kids grow up and say they want to be actors,
They don't want to be actors.
They don't want to be. Okay, this question's gone.
Stand-up comics?
Maurya is.
Just steer her as far away.
You played Akshay Kumar's mother.
Wow. Finally.
We had to get there in the rapid fire. A contemporary whose mother you wouldn't mind playing today.
What? How? Who? Whose mother I don't mind playing? Why should now again? Why? I did na Akshay Kumar's mother.
Okay, so
who was older than me, but finished now for life.
Okay, Delhi Crime 2. Do you view that as your best performance yet?
I think Delhi Crime. I think Vartika. I am very critical about my work. I don't like it. But if there was one performance that I probably deserved to be nominated, I would think it's Delhi Crime.
Super. Jim, your turn.
Arey, mera khatam ho gaya?
Yes.
Oh shit.
Jim, the one thing
Not so
you
much.
discovered about yourself while making Rocket Boys.
That I don't like wearing a fat suit under a three-piece suit.
Okay.
It
The
was
one thing.
hot. It was hot. You'd have to peel that fat suit off me. It was disgusting.
Oh.
It was disgusting. I'd sweat through the fat suit. You could see sweat on the outside of the padding of the fat suit. It was horrible.
Okay.
Yeah, and the first time they put me in it, rapid fire. Carry on.
I'm sorry, but I have to get through Veer also, so we're running out of time. The one thing common between you and Homi Bhabha.
Parsi.
Okay.
I would also say fluidity.
Fluidity.
The one thing you admired most about Homi Bhabha.
His curiosity.
The one thing you ended up disliking about him.
Similar to me, young, when younger, very hot-headed, arrogant, can be very blunt in the way he transmits information, especially to the people around him that he loves.
And you think that's similar to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any one thing you decided to admire about Nehru?
So many things. When I started reading Nehru's work, I saw that a lot of things that Homi Bhabha had said later, he had just said earlier in an earlier book, like in Discovery of India. There are direct quotes that Homi Bhabha has later said in his books that are taken straight from, his mentor in a way, and letters to a daughter as well. Lots of experiments that Homi Bhabha would refer to, and scientists. It's all in that book that he's written to his daughter. So there was so many similarities there.
Okay. One piece of advice you'd give young actors if they say they want to learn from your process?
Rehearse.
Okay. Do you believe this is Rocket Boys 2 is your best performance yet?
It's not for me to judge, honestly.
You can you can introspect about your own performances and have a view on them.
I like it because it gave me the opportunity to play so many different shades of one person.
Okay.
I like the breadth of the character.
Okay. The one Indian artist, painter, I'm thinking of saying, whose biography you'd love to play the lead role in.
Oh. Souza or M.F. Hussain?
The one foreign painter whose biography you'd like to play the lead role in.
I would never be cast. Like one that I could also possibly play.
Your choice. You pick. You're picking the biography. You're picking the artist.
Picasso.
Picasso. Okay, Veer.
Can I get Shefali's question? All of them.
Veer, the one thing common between your two Indias.
They both love it.
They both. The one piece of advice you have for Kunal Kamra.
Keep going, keep writing, write about many, 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 many things. You're funny as hell.
Would you rather have fewer people take you more seriously or more people take you less seriously?
I don't get to decide who takes me seriously or
What
not.
would you rather have?
I would rather, sorry, could you repeat the question?
Would you rather have fewer people take you more seriously or more people take you less seriously?
I would rather have a lot of people not take me seriously through the show, and then when they were leaving, take me very seriously on the drive home.
This
Okay.
seems like deja vu. I've heard this question.
It's a rapid fire. So we're going to do it again. If you had to go back and perform Walking on Broken Das, would you change any of the jokes?
No, it's the first stand-up comedy show in India to play NCPA and Tata Theatre. It's imperfect and it's bad, but it means a world of things to me.
Super. The one topic or subject or person you'd never make fun of on stage?
There isn't one. I'll make fun of it, and if you don't like it, you let me know, and we'll go from there.
Of all the anecdotes and stories you've recalled in the landing, how many of them are 100% accurate?
I would say that off landing, 85% of the show is very, very accurate. I wrote a show because I was on the news. I didn't write a show to get on the news.
Okay. Is this your best performance yet, landing?
I'm writing it right now.
Okay, small game now. I want to ask you, who is the better muse for you in your work? Modi or Rahul?
I think they inspire your publication more than they inspire me collectively.
I was at your show. There were a fair number of jokes on both and across the board.
Yeah.
So
But I'd say inspiration is more your game than it is mine.
muse.
I think they're your muse much more.
Okay. No, they're
Your muse and they're your muse also. So yeah.
We're mainstream news. Of course, they are on the front page every day. So.
Either one of them.
But what is mainstream to you? Is my
The most inspiring. I don't find either particularly inspiring.
Not inspiring. Well, fair. Okay, so we go to the next one. Yeah. Trump or Biden?
Trump for sure. Yeah.
Smriti Irani or Mahua?
As in a muse to make fun of. I wouldn't make fun of either one of them. I think they do it to each other quite a bit already. So.
Arvind or Mamta?
Arvind Kejriwal or Mamta Banerjee, I would say Arvind Kejriwal.
Okay. 4 options: Netanyahu, Putin, Xi Jinping, or Erdogan?
Vladimir Putin, for sure. I think that's a fascinatingly insecure man.
Super. Guys, thank you so much. It's been a long conversation with 3 incredibly talented people. I hope I got some acting questions. Shefali, I hope I asked you enough questions. And Veer, I hope I'm not got into trouble.
No, I think I'm okay. Ahmed, are we okay? Yeah.
Audience, thank you for staying and hanging out. And it's been, thank you all. It's been a great audience. And
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh.
Thank you, Anand, for the fabulous session. And as we conclude, I would like to thank our partners, presenting partner Religare Enterprises Limited, co-presenting partner Polycab Associates, Bagri's Yoga, Clean Air, Strangers and Sons, experience partner Club Jolies. Please stay back and join us for the cocktail.